Today we're going to explore the concept of healthy boundaries and how to know when someone truly isn't respecting the boundaries you're setting. This is a script I've written. One of the most confusing parts of healing is this question: is this relationship actually unhealthy for me? This is especially true if you were raised in families where you were taught that you had to prioritize other people's needs, moods, or comfort. In these instances, when we've kind of developed the coping skill of people pleasing, boundary setting can feel destabilizing to our system, even when it is deeply necessary. Today, I want to talk about how to recognize when someone is consistently not respecting or acknowledging your boundaries, what psychology and neuroscience tells us about what is happening in these dynamics, and how to discern from a spiritual and embodied place what is healthiest for you. This isn't about cutting people out of your life impulsively, and it's not about tolerating harm in the name of compassion. It's about clarity and understanding what your nervous system can actually sustain. Let's explore what a boundary actually is from a psychological perspective. We'll start by exploring what a boundary is not. A boundary is something that isn't set with the intention of being a punishment. It isn't a demand for someone to change. It isn't an attempt to control another person. If you're finding that you're setting a boundary with those things in mind, it's coming from an unhealthy place. A boundary instead is a clear statement of what you will or will not participate in. It is information about what your nervous system can safely hold. It is an act of self-responsibility and accountability for what your needs are. From a psychological perspective, healthy boundaries protect our emotion regulation, our self-trust, relational safety. They are not intended to be walls. They are actually containers for relationships that help relationships be safe. How do we recognize when boundaries are being rejected? Well, occasional misunderstandings can happen in relationships. What is important is looking at patterns, not at perfection. These are signs that someone is consistently not respecting or acknowledging your boundaries. They include things like dismissing or minimizing your feelings when you express a limit. They include things like arguing or being defensive around why your boundary is not something they can acknowledge or accept, instead of acknowledging and respecting it. They might repeatedly ask for exceptions after you've said no. They may frame your boundary as selfish, unkind, or unreasonable. They may ignore the boundary and act as if it never was stated. They may require you to over-explain or justify your needs and boundaries. A key signal is this: if you set a boundary and you feel calmer after stating the boundary, but more distressed after the interaction with the person, that tells you that the boundary was accurate and the relationship is not adapting. Let's explore the neuroscience of boundary violations. From a nervous system perspective, repeated boundary violations activate chronic stress responses. Your body begins to anticipate emotional labor, guilt, pressure, or having to override your own needs. This leads your nervous system to become hypervigilant or to collapse because it feels fatigued. It might lead to irritability or shutdown or emotional numbing. Neuroscience shows that when boundaries are ignored, the nervous system doesn't experience connection. It experiences threat or depletion, even if the other person is claiming loving intentions. Intention does not override nervous system impact, and boundaries are a way of protecting the nervous system. It is important to understand that your body keeps the score. When someone continues to ignore boundaries that you are setting, it teaches your nervous system that it isn't safe to be in relationship with that person. Why some people cannot respect boundaries. I think this is really important and tender to understand so we don't see the other people as bad or evil. People who consistently cannot respect boundaries often rely on other people to regulate their emotions. or they feel entitled to access or caretaking because they have unhealed wounds inside themselves. Sometimes they experience boundaries as rejection or a need for you to control them, and that makes them feel unsafe. Sometimes they lack internal capacity for mutuality. This does not mean that they are intentionally trying to harm you, but it does mean that they may not be capable of the kind of relationship that you deserve and are asking for. Recognition of this is not judgment, it is realism. Let's explore the spiritual misconception that can keep people stuck in relationships that are unhealthy. Frameworks emphasize the importance of unconditional love, forgiveness, non-attachment. However, when misapplied, these teachings can subtly encourage self-abandonment. A more mature spiritual understanding of this is love does not require proximity. You can love someone and still need to protect yourself from them because they are unhealthy. Compassion does not require access. You can understand that someone is doing the best they can and that they are inherently good, but that doesn't give them the right to have access to you if they continually cannot respect your needs and boundaries. Presence does not mean tolerance. Just because you see that someone is unhealed doesn't mean that your nervous system can tolerate being around them. From a spiritual perspective, boundaries are not egoic. They are expressions of truth and integrity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop participating in dynamics that reinforces harm for both people. All right, how do we discern what is healthiest for you? There is no universal truth that says you must cut off contact or you must stay and endure. The question is not, what is the right thing to do? The question instead becomes, what allows my nervous system to remain regulated, self-respecting, and intact? Here are some guiding reflections. When you think about the relationship and you're setting boundaries with the other person, do you feel safer, clearer, more grounded with distance, or with closeness? Another question you might ask is, when I enforce a boundary, does this relationship adjust or does it escalate? If it escalates, it's a sign that it's not a healthy dynamic. Another question you might ask is, am I maintaining this relationship out of love and adaptability and mutual respect, or out of fear, obligation, or guilt? The latter implies you're staying for unhealthy reasons. Another question you might ask is, does staying require me to repeatedly override myself? If you're continuing to ignore your own needs and boundaries just to maintain connection with someone, you are teaching your inner system that it is okay to abandon yourself. And that leads to chronic stress and isn't healthy for the nervous system. If you experience relief when you step away from this relationship, that is often a clue. So is chronic tension. If staying in relationship leads your body to be constantly in a state of hypervigilance, that is an indication that maybe it isn't healthy for your nervous system long term. Only you can decide what's right for you. Here's an example of what healing sometimes looks like. For many people, healing includes this realization: I've explained my boundary clearly, and I don't need to keep explaining it. At that point, the work is no longer communication, it's alignment. Sometimes boundaries need to become limited contact, structured interaction, or in some cases, stepping away completely. This is not as punishment, it is protection for your own nervous system. We cannot heal and nurture our own nervous system when we stay in systems that are unwilling to grow or change with us. So how do boundaries become an act of love? Well, healthy boundaries don't end relationships. They reveal which relationships can grow with us. When someone can acknowledge and respect your limits, trust deepens, safety increases, intimacy becomes possible and the norm. When someone cannot respect your boundaries and cannot grow with you, distance may be the most compassionate option, not because you lack love, but because you finally include yourself in it. A regulated nervous system doesn't ask, how much can I tolerate? It asks, what allows me to remain whole? And that answer will be different for each person and each relationship. If this teaching resonated, you are not alone. Learning boundaries later in life is not failure. It's often a sign of profound healing. If you'd like to explore this work more deeply, you may find my book resonates with you. My book, The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Powell's Books, and other online platforms. And I have online courses and offer mentorship through my website, blossomingheartwellness.com. You are not asking too much for someone to respect your needs and boundaries. You're asking for mutual care. I'm sending you deep love and appreciation for who you are and where you are on your healing journey.